If you have a 9 to 5 job and you're scared to do your first wholesale deal, one thing you might consider is actually listening to this guest who did his first real estate investment leveraging his 9 to 5 so that he could buy a fixer upper and finance the actual repair costs, all with an extremely low down payment loan. Matt Porcaro with the 203K FHA loan explains how exactly to do this. This is a little bit different than our normal episodes, a departure from getting your first wholesale deal. But if you're like me and you want long-term rentals, I know this one's going to be really helpful because it's similar to how I got started before I started off-market marketing. If you've gotten any benefit from this podcast, please take a moment and subscribe, and also please leave a review. This is what allows us to continue making content for you to get you over the edge to financial freedom.
The DealMachine REI podcast. Everything you need to know to get started in real estate investing.
All right, so we're back for another episode. We've got Matt Porcaro from the 203 Way, and he's going to tell us, Matt, can you tell us in 60 seconds, tell us about you, what you're about, and what you do?
Sure. So just like a lot of people be trying to get into real estate, tried a bunch of different strategies, couldn't really crack it. It wasn't until I found something called the FHA 203K loan, which is what allowed me to get into real estate investing. The 203K loan is an FHA loan for owner occupants. But one of the cool things is it allows you to buy fixer upper properties. It allows you to buy properties as is because it allows you to wrap the renovation budget into the mortgage. So you only have to pay 3.5% down out of pocket. You get the ability to purchase plus renovate a house. So essentially what I did was I saw the opportunity with that and basically did a combined house hacking strategy and BRRRR strategy all wrapped into one, into my own house. So I bought a duplex property because FHA loans allow you to buy up to a 4-unit property. Bought a duplex property for $270,000, had an $80,000 renovation budget, only required me to put $9,500 down. That's all that came out of pocket. Seller covered closing costs. And, bank covers all the renovation costs. We did the renovation. 8 months later, it was worth $130,000 over what I was in it for. So it got reappraised for $480,000. Lived in one unit, rented out the other unit. So I was living essentially for free, have since moved out. That property cash flows me $2,000 a month. But really what this enabled me to do is it opened the door for real estate investing for me. It got me into something for very little out of pocket. It's something that I held, something that I house hacked. And now that I tapped into that equity to go buy more deals and get into my flipping game.
Yeah, I can totally appreciate doing a deal like that and giving you confidence to go on and do more deals. I felt the same way. I was doing direct to seller marketing. I was looking for the very best deals, but I still felt unsure of myself when I was going to make like an offer because I had never closed a real estate transaction before. And I ended up finding a house with a low down payment loan. It didn't need any work, but it had 5 bedrooms, and I rented out 3 of the bedrooms and lived in one of the 4th ones. And so that gave me, just from an MLS deal, it was easy to just make an offer and buy that property. And then it also was able to cash flow, reduce my living expenses. And then I went on to go do more direct to seller marketing to find more and do more deals. And so I'm hearing from you that gave you a ton of confidence too.
100%. I mean, I say all the time, right? Like the first deal will change your life, but it won't change your life. But it'll change your life in the sense that like so many doors are going to open for you that you don't know even exist yet, right? And I compare it to like climbing a cliff, right? You're like climbing the side of the Grand Canyon, right? You're climbing up that side of the Grand Canyon, like up top there's a bunch of real estate investors, man, and they're all doing deals. Man, and getting that first deal is like climbing up that mountain, right? And it's like, it's really a push. And you get up there, then you finally get up there and you're like, oh, wow, it's flat. This is really nice. And then like, it's not saying it gets easier, but the idea is like, you kind of get a better vision when you're up top. You could see that, but that cliff is big. The difference between people that have never done a deal and people that have done one is huge. But the people that have done 1 to 2 is not that big of a difference. So getting that first one gives you the confidence. It opens doors for you, makes you realize, that there's sellers out there that are willing to do deals with you. And when you can speak with confidence because you've done it, it changes the game for sure.
I liked how you said it'll change your life, but it won't change your life. And I think What you're saying is it gives you confidence. It gives you that new viewpoint. but it also doesn't need to give you the most dollars, because the value is actually just in doing it and getting that new viewpoint, more so than making you rich on the first deal.
Right. I tell people, with my whole strategy, right, the 203K way and using the 203K loan to get your first deal, right? Tell people all the time, like real estate's not get rich quick by any means. And coming in this world that we just came out of some freaky times with NFTs and crypto and people getting rich really fast, like real estate is get wealthy slow. And that's the real flex. And sometimes it takes a long time to get that, right? It took me definitely damn near all of my 20s to understand, into my 30s, that like, okay, the real game is like wealth preservation and like buying properties slowly and getting that stuff long term. So again, that first property, you're not going to like be sipping Mai Tais in Miami on your laptop after getting one deal, right? Like that one deal will change the way you think about money, will change the way you think about real estate. But it's where it all starts, right? Like the good news is nobody that's a real estate investor stops at one deal. I mean, very few that I know. You get one right, you're gonna see the benefits, and you're gonna do everything in your power to keep doing it.
What got you started? What was your first deal? Give us what that looked like. What was the mindset of like, I'm going to do this?
Yeah. So I, like everybody probably you've ever had on the podcast, everyone that gets into real estate investing 9 times out of 10, I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and that red pilled me big time, because growing up in a family where money was super tight, it was a volatile subject. I grew up in a house, my dad's had his own contracting business, very, very cyclical with the market and everything like that. Like when times were bad, it was very obvious. And um, it was the basically the reason for any stress or any bad times growing up. So when you're a young kid, you're very impressionable, when like your parents are struggling. And so I wanted to just find a different way. So a book like Rich Dad Poor Dad completely changes your mindset, because again, like you grow up in a blue collar environment where people aren't good with money. My parents, I love them to death, but they're just not good with money, right? You grow up in that environment and you're like, okay, well, there's got to be a better way, right? Like, how do rich people get rich? And then Rich Dad Poor Dad came about. And like, I read that whole thing and I was like, the takeaway was like, oh, okay, this is really cool. I got to start a business. Because at that time, like real estate to me, especially here in New York, where I'm at, Long Island, New York, super high cost of living, right? Like, I'm like, oh, damn, maybe I'll get a house one day, but like real estate investing, that's just for old rich dudes. Like I can't do that, but maybe I could start a business, right? And I went down that rabbit hole of like, doing all different kinds of like make money online things, stock trading, you name it, I tried it, right? And it wasn't until I found out about wholesaling and found out that like you can get into real estate without money out of pocket, with very little out of pocket. But with that, I realized it takes a lot of time, takes a lot of effort. And I was telling you before, this was before DealMachine, so I was doing driving for dollars, but I had a pen and paper. And I was writing down addresses and like messing up the addresses and crossing them out and going back and trying to verify the information. So honest to God, I just didn't crack it. And I was trying for many years to try to get real estate to work for me, and honestly came up really short and was just super frustrated. Mailers, driving for dollars, bandit signs, the whole nine. I could blame it on my market. I could blame it on a lot of different things, right? But at the end of the day, I just couldn't crack it. So the 203K way was kind of the way, like you said, David, like it allowed me to hunt for things on market. Now, even back in 2016, like people would love to say, oh, you did this back in 2016. Like it was not easy back then either. I placed tons of offers, right? Dealing with banks, like foreclosures were being a Long Island, like that was a tough thing. But the reality is that I knew it was the only chance I had, because it was a low down payment option, only required $9,500 out of my pocket. Like that was doable for me. That was pretty much everything I had to my name, and took me a long time to save up. But at least I can make offers on these fixer upper properties and try to take advantage of, doing a flip and getting all that equity and getting that experience like we talked about. So that was the first deal. That first deal was it was a literal crack house. It was completely abandoned. It was the only thing I can afford here in New York as a single guy. But one of the benefits of the 203K was, even that property I couldn't afford on my own. And it was literally like the cheapest property on Long Island. Because it was like, it was again, I mean, it was a crack out. I mean, it was practically falling down, but it was the only thing I could pretty much close to afford. And I actually, in the beginning, didn't realize I could afford it. What happened was my lender told me that I actually found out about house hacking by accident. Okay. So I didn't really know that you could buy a multifamily, but he told me, hey, this is a legal two family. So I'm like, okay, well, what does that mean? He said, well, with the FHA loan, they're able to forecast the future rental income of the other units into your pre-approval. So I went from being really only pre-approved for maybe 280,000 to like 350,000 just because that other unit was going to give me $2,000 a month in rental income. So now I was able to even just afford more than I could on my own. And that was what kind of pushed me over the edge. But like, you know, it took a long time to find that deal. But once I did, it was my way of getting into the game. So again, put the $9,500 down. That covered the renovation cost plus the purchase price. Did the whole renovation. There was a lot of headaches, a lot of crazy stuff throughout it. But again, with so little out of pocket, the return was huge. Built 130,000 in equity in just 8 months. Lived in it briefly. The rule with FHA is you got to be there at least a year. So that's where I was pretty much there for about that amount of time. I then got engaged to my now wife, moved in with her, moved out. And then I still have that property. It cash flows me free and clear $2,000 a month net. And that was all off of $9,500. And, ultimately that was
So did you have to get out of the 203K loan when, like, can you have multiples of those? How does
you
that?
can't. So it's a great question. So FHA, the rule is you're only allowed to have one under your name at any given time. But what I did was, so FHA and 203K loans, they fall under the same FHA guidelines, but like they couldn't be more opposite from one another, right? FHA became like a bad word in the last couple of years just because FHA has like a lot of like stringent guidelines on the houses, but the 203K negates all of that, right? The 203K allows you to buy properties as is. You don't have to worry about if it's, the paint's peeling or anything like that because they're giving you the renovation budget to fix it, right? What it also does is, here's a really cool thing. And now you guys are investors, so you're going to appreciate this. A lot of people don't appreciate how insane this is. But the FHA 203K allows you to get a loan of up to 110% of the after renovated value. So the leverage they give you on a property is pretty insane, right? So right, because the idea is it's an owner occupant loan, so they assume that you're going to be here for a little while, so they'll let you go stretch and do that extra renovation and make, put those nicer countertops in and all that stuff because again, owner occupant loan. So when you think about like how crazy that is, it starts to go into, you start to see the benefit of it. But the other thing with that there is like appraisal doesn't become an issue because your loan amount, they'll give you so much. Now I teach it that you want to get all in for under 80%, under 75%, as if you would do on a flip or something like that, because you want to build equity into the deal. Now, the beauty of it is you can build ample equity into the deal and then immediately refinance out into conventional. You get rid of the mortgage insurance, which FHA carries, right? Or any low down payment loan carries, is that couple $100 a month that you pay in exchange for putting down a low down payment. So what I did was I immediately refinanced out, right? I got it reappraised. I heard it was 480. I was like stoked for that. Got it reappraised, got refinanced out into a conventional and got rid of that mortgage insurance, which was a couple extra $100 a month, which gave me a couple extra $100 a month in cash flow. So I immediately refinanced out. You can only really have one at any given time. But very shortly after that, I got a home equity line of credit as well. And I took that. People are like cash out refi versus home equity line of credit. I like the home equity line because the home equity line was there when I needed it and I wasn't paying for it when I wasn't.
So now you actually do lead generation for wholesalers as well. Is that correct?
Yeah. So it's again kind of in its infancy, but I always felt that at the end of the day, so just to dial back a little bit, okay. So right after I did my first deal, we were talking about how important the first deal is, right? I packaged that up and I basically made a deal sheet. And now back then, like hard money lenders and private money lenders and stuff like that wouldn't talk to you if you never did a deal. These days, like there's some out there that'll do it with you. I mean, they'll give you some pretty awful terms, but like they'll do it with you. Back then, like hard money lenders wouldn't even look at you if you've done at least, a couple deals. But what happened was I did this first deal and I showed the numbers and I took pictures and I wrote up a deal sheet on what I did and what I'm looking for now. And all of a sudden, hard money lenders wanted to talk to me. Even private money, even friends and family were like, "Hey, I want to do a flip." It's crazy. Again, when we talk about the doors that open, I went from being like a guy that's an engineer by trade, electrical engineer, and like nobody really cared about what I did, to like being the most interesting man in the room very quickly. All it takes, because real estate, people like to talk about it. It's intriguing to a lot of people, right? You understand. So, I think what ended up happening was I took that deal and it opened up so many doors. And I got relationships with real estate agents. At the time, foreclosures were big. And I was dealing with banks, and banks were not easy to deal with by any means. And but ultimately, that was my only deal source. Okay. And I went from trying to crack wholesaling off market to failing, finding some stuff on the MLS, which penciled out, and then going into like MLS deals and just trying to find wholesale foreclosure deals. Now, back then, even still, like foreclosures were listed at 95 cents on the dollar. Like these weren't deals by any means, but over time, working with the right people, building relationships with real estate agents, bringing them out to lunch, everything like that. There were one or two guys that I would work with that were getting me foreclosure deals, and I was getting kind of some inklings on it. And that's what I depended on for my deal flow. And, here in New York, we were doing kind of big level flips. So I was basically doing like a deal or two a year. So I finished that one. I had 2 deals under contract. Then I'm like starting to roll. I'm starting to use private money and not using my own money anymore.
So let's focus on like how you found the deal. Because most people listening, I don't think they're going to be using private money, but they're actually going to be trying to find deals.
Mm-hmm. So here's the thing, right? What happened was I got into contract on 2 properties, right? Off of MLS. And that was March 15th of 2020. So if you remember that time, that's when everything shut down. And there wasn't a lender on planet Earth that wanted to lend me on these deals. And they both fell out of contract. In retrospect, it sucks. And I wish I knew that. But here's what I'm getting to. Then this is the kicker here. After that happened, foreclosures evaporated. They were gone. And I realized very quickly how exposed I was to not knowing how to get deals off market. Because what happened is that my only deal source was now gone overnight. So what do you do if you can't pave your own way? So the point I'm getting at is I had to learn off market real fast, because at the end of the day, that was the only way I was going to get back into the game. Now, during that time, the 203K way, my whole community took off. Was spending a lot of time at home. I was here in New York. New York was one of those places where damn near everything was closed. So I kind of went like and internalized and just was like learning and trying to get better at deal finding and everything like that. And then actually, consequently, me and my wife were looking to move out of New York City and move into our own house, right? Put us into perspective. Now, the great thing about this was I was like, okay, well, I need to find my own house. And now here in New York, as you know, like the inventory issues in the last couple of years, I mean, it's still bad, right? I knew that off market deal finding needed to happen.
So you found your own house off market.
Yes. So that's what I wanted to get to, right? Is
how did you find it?
Yeah. So we found it using DealMachine. Okay. So here's the beauty of when you have a really, really tight target and demographic and like criteria is so key, right? People love to say like, oh, I just want to find deals. When you say that, like if you don't have a criteria or a target, or like sometimes like dialing it down to just a small area, like me and my wife, we had a very, very specific area we were looking at, 2 mile square radius on Long Island, New York, extremely desirable market, like so hard to get in here. We were making offers on the MLS, and we were placing offers and getting outbid by a ton of different people. It was just like left and right getting, bought out, overbid by cash buyers, everything like that. So like, I told my wife, I'm like, listen, let's drive the entire neighborhood and look for because like the other thing too is like things that were hitting the market, like a lot of times like weren't things that we like. This is our forever home. So we were very specific with what we wanted.
So you drove around in that 2 mile radius and found the ones you wanted, and then you sent them all postcards?
No. So we sent them ballpoint mailers. We did the the handwritten ones.
Yeah, they're written with a handwritten
Yep.
ball.
And what we were able to
Yep.
do too is we were able to put our picture on there, and our story was a little different. Basically, we said we personalized it. We were like, hey, my family and I were looking to move out of our 1-bedroom. We're looking to move into something for our family. If you have any interest in selling, please call or text us. And sent a bunch of those out, and sent out really not many. Number one, the response rate was insane on those mailers. We got
on the ballpoints. They're a little more expensive, but you get a better response rate for sure.
And personalized.
If I told you what our response rate, people don't believe me. So now here's the thing, right? The combination of driving for dollars with ballpoint mailers, I tell everybody in my community, like, there is pound for pound no better way to find deals, period. The response rate's off the charts, and you are so targeted, and you're not competing with like what I was competing with. We were competing with every Tom, Dick, and Harry on the MLS. Whereas when you drive for dollars, that list is your list and your list only. You're not getting these people that have a ton of different mailers that are hitting their inbox. It's just me. So what ended up happening was we had a very small compact list of about 200 houses, 250 houses, and we just blitzed the heck out of that list with mail. And lo and behold, in the craziest, most competitive market out there, we were having tons of people call us back. We had like a 10% response rate. 25 people called us back.
Yeah, which is insane. Please open up your podcast app right now and leave us a review and let us know what you thought of this episode. It means so much because the reviews help us get in front of more people. And the more people we can get in front of, the more we can help them achieve financial freedom. And we also get more energy to put more content out like this to help you. So by leaving us a review, it will give you more content to come to help you along on your journey. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
A lot of people, they'll say like, oh, I tried my market, it didn't work. I'll ask, how many properties did you find? They'll say 16. And I'm like, okay, let me reset expectations. Your response rate's going to be, 1%? That would be good. And so you need to send hundreds, you need to find hundreds of houses that meet your criteria, which most of our users, they're just looking for rundown houses because that's how you find amazing deals. Exactly.
Full transparency. Like, I was doing another renovation loan with I practice what I preach, right? I didn't want to just buy something turnkey. We could do that, but I believe in building equity, not losing it. So we looked for every fixer upper in our market. We targeted, and the beauty of it is we drove every single neighborhood. We literally covered the entirety of it. Again, DealMachine made this all easy, right? And I'm not plugging you guys because I'm on this right now. Like I like legit, this made this possible for us, right? And the idea was like, because we had such a tight market, we were able to blitz it and be very, very methodical with what we did. And we had plenty of people. The house I'm sitting in right now, they were about to list it. They were literally about to list it for $730,000. It's probably worth as is $750,000. We picked it up for $615,000.
How? If they were going to list it for $750,000, how did you get it for $615,000? That's insane.
Here's why. So it was an older lady. She's going into a retirement home. They built the land. They built this house in 1957. Original owners. The husband passed away the previous November. Their 2 kids. One kid lives in New York City. I say kids. These guys were older. She was 90 years old. The kids were 60. Right. High-end doctor in New York City. Daughter lives down in Maryland. They're very far away. They need to clean. They talk to the real estate agent. Agent wants them to clean out the entire house, stage it, right? Then put it listed on the market. Then have to worry about showings and doing all that stuff, and them have to show up. When I told them that I will, and it's admittedly an old house, pretty good condition, but issues with the electrical, some stuff. I said, listen.
Oh yeah, that wood paneling is pristine.
Hey, listen, they kept it nice, but old house, right? So at the end of the day, because I'm using a renovation loan, right, to buy my own house, I said, listen, don't worry about anything. I'll take it as is. Don't worry about repairs. Don't worry about cleaning it. Don't worry about staging it. Don't worry about anything. Take what you want, leave what you don't. Ryan Dossi talks about this, right? Who's part of the community as well. He talks about like people that are willing to sell at a discount many times are not like destitute or in need of a lot of money. Like, you actually have people like this guy's he's a high level doctor, makes good money. The daughter makes good money, right? the idea of them just not having to deal with having to stage it and clean it and have all that stress and added time, they know that their time's money. They were willing to sell at a deep discount because they knew that, number one, I was taking it off their hands. Number two, they didn't have to do anything with it, and it was going to be an easy transaction for them, and we could do it in less time. We closed in 48 days. It was the most easy transaction I've ever done in real estate. They were a pleasure to deal with, and I was helping them. Albeit they left a lot of shit in here. like we definitely taken some time to clean it out, but we were totally, I mean, for the sole reason of like, we could not even compete with anything on market, turned into, we could actually talk to the seller, completely negotiate, and get it for $100,000+ under what they could have sold it for and what it's worth.
So I think that from what I'm picking up, the only downside here with this 203K way is that you constantly have to live in a renovation.
Yes and no. I mean, you know, at the end of the day, like one of the cool things about these loans is they allow you to wrap the first couple months mortgage payments. So the 203K specifically will let you wrap up to 6 months into the loan. Now, you know, you want to make sure you have good equity on the deal and buy a good deal for that, because it does add to your principal. But the idea is like, they have it built into the loan that they're not expecting you to live in a construction site. You know, and like we said in the beginning of this, like, these loans are not really, in my opinion, things to be repeated often over and over again. Like, people, the first thing they want to ask is like, oh, how many times can I do the 203K? Because it's a great thing, right? You only have to put 3.5% out of your pocket and you get all that equity. But the reality is, like we said before, like, there's other options that are faster, right? Private money's faster, hard money's faster. Like, when you get the better deals, like, and you know how to identify it, like, there's nobody on the planet that loves these loans more than me, right? Like, obviously, but like, when it's something to get you off the ground, it's something when you're looking to buy your own house, use this opportunity to get yourself into a property and build equity instead of being like underwater, like some people are right now, because they bought too high in the last couple of years. And now that we're seeing a little correction, like, listen, a low rate's great, but like, not if you can't move now, right? Because you're underwater on your mortgage, right? So the idea is like, this is meant to be used, you know, where it fits, and obviously in your primary residence, but like, why not take advantage of like such cheap and free money and build wealth for your family long term by using other people's money, right?
Well, Matt, I can totally relate on how you built that confidence and built that equity by finding an off-market property and then doing your deal with your primary house and house hacking, living in it with multiple units. We've now come to the part of the podcast where DealMachine's mission is to give everyone the power of real estate investing. And so they have an amazing life and great relationships with the people they care about. So I want to switch gears and ask you, what outside of work makes you a better person, or what hobbies do you have that you really, really enjoy, maybe yourself or with your wife?
Love it, man. So I am a new dad of two. So we just had our number two. So
Congratulations.
thank you, sir. So I got a 2-year-old and a 3-month-old. And listen, real estate. The way I describe real estate is, you know, listen, I'm not a big millionaire. Like, well, whatever. I'm not a guy, like, I don't flaunt. I'm not the guy with the nice cars. I'm not the guy with, like, you know, flaunting anything, right? I'm not traveling the world, but we do well and we do okay. And real estate's the reason for that. Real estate gives you that lightness, and I don't know what, like, when you have multiple income streams coming in, right? When you know how to no longer trade your time for money and start trading your value for money, things start to happen where you see rental payments hit your bank account while you're out with your family on a walk or on vacation or something like that. Not having to think about if I could pay for something, right? Like, if my son needs something, I go and buy it. Right? Like, I don't think about the price. I don't look at the price. I don't really like, and I know that sounds, I don't want that to sound facetious, but I think what the point I'm trying to make is, like, the hobbies and the things that you want to do with your family, it just gives you that ability to not have to worry every time you're out doing something, not have to worry about going, like, we're going down to Disney in a month. Like, you know, people talk about how, it's expensive as heck. Right. But like, at the end of the day, like, we're booking the restaurants we want to book. we're going where we want to go. We're gonna invest in the thing. We're staying at the nice hotel. We don't have to worry about things. And again, I don't like to say this to sound facetious. Like, this is possible for everybody. It's just like having those multiple income streams give you that ability where like that weight's off of your shoulders a little bit. And we know how blessed we are that we don't have to think about stuff like that, because we see a lot of people struggle and live paycheck to paycheck. And we know, and we're very grateful for what we have and what we worked for, because that ability to do that, I know, is a rare thing. And that's what real estate brings for us. And in terms of hobbies and everything, it's just being around my family and just being able to spend time and go on vacation and go for walks, have that time freedom as well. Like, if my wife needs something, we go do it. Like, I go help her out. I'm not tied down to anything.
I feel like that's one of the most unexpected benefits of earning more money, especially money that is passive, that you can earn even if you don't work that month, is like you free up your mental ability instead of worrying about the increased cost of eggs at the grocery store, which previously, if you're just thinking about how much can I save, that's definitely going to stress you out and it's going to bother you. The gas prices are going to bother you. That's why most of the country gets so upset about that. But I just haven't thought about it. I know inflation's happened. I know the eggs and the gas has gotten more expensive, but I haven't thought about it one time, which is amazing. But that's not what I thought would happen whenever I was going to earn more money. For me, it was like, well, I want to do what I want. I do want to have a really nice car. Never in my world did I think, oh, I want to free up my mind so I don't have to worry about increasing costs and random bullshit that bothers most people.
Yeah, it's just less stuff to worry about, right? And us as business owners, like, we have a lot to worry about already. So not having to worry about stuff. And again, this all sprung from the fact of, like, I grew up in the household where that stuff was worried about all the time. Like, I was afraid to ask my mom for money for a school trip. Like, I was afraid to ask her for lunch money, like, because I knew, and not afraid because, like, not afraid she'd yell at me. Because I knew that they were struggling a lot of times, right? And, like, I mean, there's times, like, literally, like, when everybody had, like, cool new pair of pants or shoes or whatever, and, like, everybody had it, and, like, I asked for it for my birthday, and, like, I just wouldn't get it, and my mom would, like, sit there, like, crying, basically, like, because she knew that she couldn't get it from me. And it's tough, man. And, like, again, love my parents to death. They sacrificed a lot for me. Like, we weren't by any means poor, but, like, those when you're young, man, like, that stuff, like, that always sticks with you. Those are core memories, whether you like it or not. And, like, for my kids, like, I just want them to know that, like, they'll be provided for, and I don't want them to ever take it for granted. That's not what I'm looking for. And I definitely know where we come from. And I'm like, I know I want them to have what they need, but also stay in control of, like, what you want, and really discern, like, what you need versus what you want, not go crazy down that, like, want rabbit hole,
Oh gosh, man. Well, first and foremost, like, I can relate to all that stuff too. Uh, Megan always worries about the cost of eggs because she's the one that goes grocery shopping. I don't
Well, you
worry
guys have
about
kids. I'm just feeding myself, so that might be a difference.
right.
Listen, I probably should worry about it more.
I mean, it's different, but, like, I can relate to that because real estate is a game changer. It puts you in a different category. It puts you in a different, what stressors are related to your life with the power of real estate backing you. It changes everything. But I can relate also, Matt, to growing up. I don't know that looking back at it, I don't know that I was ever, like, wanting or in need of anything that I didn't get. Now, was there things I wanted to experience or buy and it wasn't going to happen? Yeah, kids around me were having great experiences and I was kind of on the sidelines. And I want to change that, and that's kind of what drove me into real estate. I guess let's just go with this. What are you trying? What are some ways that you are going to shelter? This is a question that's totally selfish. What are your plans to shelter your kids' expectations growing up because of where you are now in the real estate world? Because I'm the same. I don't want them to want for anything, but I don't exactly know how am I going to handle going from where I grew up to what my kids are going to grow up. It's so different.
That's a great question, man. And, I think us as, parents and everything, like we try to figure out the answers to those questions all the time, right? Like, how do you give your kids everything they want? Like, but keep them grounded. Right. And I think it all comes down to leading by example, right? Like if I show that I'm not always like materialistic or something like that, hopefully they won't be either. Right. Like, I think the biggest takeaway of me being a new parent, man, and this needs to be listened to by everybody here. Like, we love to talk, especially in the age of the internet. Like, we love giving unwarranted advice to people, right? Like, we love telling people to like eat right or do this or do that, or you shouldn't do that. I mean, like one of the biggest things I love to tell people, right, is I grew up around a family. Like, I was the only person that invested in real estate. When I got that first property, my uncles were like, you don't want to get into real estate investing. You don't want to deal with that. You don't want to be a landlord. Right. And what was the common denominator with all of them? None of them had ever owned any property. Right. So they love to give advice and they're all trying to do it to like help you. But like, the reality was their advice was completely unwarranted. Right. So like, leading by example is huge. Like, I want to see what people are doing that I want to do and just emanate, emanate that. Right. So with my kids, it's like, if I show them that I'm not materialistic and I show them like what's important to me, and like things that are important to me is family time, like experiences. Right. So hopefully they take that away and like they want those experiences too. And then last but not least, I think the big thing I'll end on is like, see, my wife came from a very different upbringing in the sense that she also struggled. Her dad was very similar, like he was kind of in his own business and, a lot of ups and downs. But the difference between my upbringing and her upbringing, and we find out a lot, is that in her household, there was no discussion of money. Like, money they did not know if their parents were struggling. And I think the takeaway, and I don't know if there's a right or wrong answer, because I don't believe that you should be like, I think your kids should learn about money and learn about the importance of it. And like, but also they shouldn't know your struggles, right? They shouldn't feel the stresses. I think, again, love my parents, but I think the main difference is like, money was like so talked about in my house. Again, like it was so obvious about any time my dad, when I knew exactly when he had a good job going or a bad job going, knew it to a T from a very young age. She said, I never thought about it, or it wasn't even a thought in her head until well after college. Like, she didn't even really know what money was. Right. So again, I'm sure there's probably a middle ground in there somewhere that we could probably find. But I think the other thing too is like, maybe just to like teach your kids the importance without making them known that it's a driver of stress. Because I think listen, I'm thankful for that, because that's what drove me to go this direction. And maybe I wouldn't have gone into real estate if it wasn't for this. But at the end of the day, like, there's some core memories back there that like probably didn't need to happen, and maybe affected me in maybe a good or a bad way. So
yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where can people actually contact you?
Yeah. So,
yep.
The 203K way on Instagram, just all one word, is really, Instagram is where this all started. So Instagram is the place to find me. I have a Facebook group where I do live streams teaching people how to do it every week. I have an can't keep up with these. YouTube page as well. YouTube, I have a lot of different YouTube videos on my process and how people can, take advantage of it themselves.
Love it.
Thanks. Check out the 203K way to connect with Matt. Thank you so much for your time today, Matt. It was really valuable to hear how you did that first deal and also how you want to raise your kids right. I think a lot of people will get a lot of benefit from listening to this, and we really appreciate you coming on.
This is a good one, man. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to the DealMachine Real Estate Investing Podcast. Please leave us a review and follow along wherever you're listening to your podcast.